Hey, this is Yazaki Wolf, and welcome to another Friday night art stream. So last week pardon me a second. So last week we were doing my Diablo character, and we made a rough of the monk, and now I'm going to do another rough sketch of the demon hunter. And then hopefully we can compare the two of those and see which one that I'll ask you guys which ones you like better, and we'll try to go to more detail into one of the other ones. So just give me a second to get set up here. Let's see here, I got my clip studio here. You know, I almost think that I should probably start putting some background music on these, because like my channel is currently demonetized. So I used to be scared to put music because I would get demonetized, but as it is right now, it seems like I could put whatever I want because I already am demonetized. I don't know, but I'll look into that. So let's see here. Okay, looks like we're set up. Alright, so this was the sketch from last time. And now looking back at this, did I? Oh, I think I lowered the opacity of this before. Yeah, so more like that is probably good. So that obviously needs a lot of detail. It's very just like, if you squint your eyes, it looks good type of thing. But I mean, that's what I was going for. This week, I think I've got change the order of which I draw it a little bit. Instead of doing the color right away, I'm gonna do it all in like grayscale and then add the color as like a last step. And like just so that you guys kind of know where I'm shooting at, like this is kind of the level of detail we're thinking about. We're not actually trying to make a finished drawing at this point. We're just putting like possibilities. You call these roughs, and when you're working in a game company in particular, and probably as a freelance artist as well, if you're working with a client, you're going to want to have a couple of just like very like quick thumbnail sketches that you could show them and get an idea of which direction they want you to go in, and then you can follow that direction to further detail. A lot of working professionally as an artist, I found, and this is particularly as sort of a designer, not necessarily as an illustrator, but I found that a lot of it comes down to efficiency. So not wasting time on things that aren't really going to be worth it in the end. So if you've watched like videos on game design, there was the whole idea of failing faster, or like making mistakes faster, so that you know right away if sort of like a game prototype you're working on, if it's not going to work, it's not worth making a complete game. You want to just get the general prototype, get the general feel of things, and then know that if you have to quit and if you feel like you failed already, then just scrap that game and move on to the next one, and it's saving you time that way. And it's the same thing with art. I believe that if you have to design, say, 50 new enemy characters for a game, you don't want to spend 4 days on the first character, and then just to find out at the end of that they don't like that design. So that's like 4 days that are gone then. So you want to be very selective about how you spend your time. Now obviously this is a Diablo character. This isn't any professional design or anything. Technically this is fan art, but I still kind of try to keep that sort of workflow as part of what I'm going for. Okay, so here's the witch hunter. Not witch hunter, demon hunter. Was it a demon hunter I wanted to do, or I think I had another character that I was thinking about sketching. Where is she? Yeah, okay, so this is also my monk character, but I kind of like this pose a little bit better. It's got like the samurai thing going on. I don't know, should we do another monk, or should we switch to the witch hunter? See, the thing I liked about this is that I could actually get into details with the face. The other one is like you couldn't really see the face at all. Well, I'll try to be quick maybe. I'll try to do a quick sketch of this. And then hopefully if we have enough time I could do another sketch of the demon hunter. Alright. I think there's a lot of extra space here that we don't really need. So let's just select this area here. And then delete everything outside of that. There we go. Cool. Alright, so generally I have, let me just make sure that this is showing up right on the stream. Oh yeah, it looks good. Alright, so generally I'll have maybe 3 different layers for when I'm roughing things in. Well, I guess 2 technically, and then the third one will come in later. But I'm going to have, one is going to be a layer that I have masked in red. In Clip Studio Paint, you're allowed to make a layer red. So I'm actually, you can't see my UI at the moment, but I'm going to be drawing in black, but the layer is a red layer, so everything just automatically turns red. And I have that down to about 30% opacity. And you want to have a very large brush. Don't want to get too much into details at the moment. So let's see if we get like general idea of where her head is going to be. And then that's going to lead down to like a rib cage. The midsection, then go out to where her hips would be. I don't know, do you think it's worth drawing the full body? Maybe just like the upper body would be enough, but I want to get the sword in there. So I don't know, we'll see. Shoulder here, shoulder there. Yeah, it looks fairly okay. Feel a little awkward, to be honest, just because like I work in my office, or I guess studio. I don't really have an office. We're just like, it's just like this big area where everyone's lined up, so I can't necessarily say office, but so I work in the studio most of the time, and it's weird because like I come home and I feel like there's just these little things that are a little bit off. It's probably with the settings of maybe like the brushes. It also could be just that I'm using a different Cintiq and different brush. And also just simple things like the way that your chair is positioned. Where I feel like I'm not quite up in the art the way that I would be at work. Like at work, I'm kind of like leaning forward into the Cintiq, whereas here I kind of like there's like a distance between me and it. Okay, for the most part that seems to be working. Should probably draw more at home so I could get used to both, but time constraints. Now this is really looking like it has like a Japanese inspiration for this armor design, I think. I mean, a lot of things are mixed in there, but definitely getting this sort of Japanese kabuto type of feel here. I'm not sure how I feel about all those proportions, but we'll get back to it later. Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and just put a leg in there, I guess. So I like being really messy at the beginning, because I think it's good to have something on the paper. Like, I think the more that you have the sort of like the, I don't know if you call it like the white canvas syndrome, or like you just have like this empty space that you're kind of scared to mess up, the more you have that fear of messing things up, like the harder it is to actually get into it. And I feel like once I actually have like just a bunch of random what do you call it, strokes on the page, then it's a lot easier for me to get in here and be like, okay, I'm gonna like, I like this stroke, I'm gonna make that a little darker, I don't really like this area, and I kind of delete and take away, and it starts feeling less like you're kind of like chiseling into like this pristine what would you call it, like slab of rock, and every mark that you make is like a finalized touch that's going to either make or break your art, and it starts to feel more like you're working with clay. And I don't know why it is, but I get this sensation of like working in clay when I have like this kind of messy design here. So I'm looking at this, and now the other thing I love about digital is that now I can go in here and be like, okay, I want to change some of these proportions. Like I want maybe this to come out a little bit more this way. I feel like it was a little too skinny. I don't know. But you can move things around and adjust. And there is that old debate about whether it's better to work digitally or traditionally, and I think there is definitely benefit in sort of the practice of working traditionally and not having these sort of tools to work with. And I think maybe I would suggest that when you are starting out, that you really should work traditionally to kind of learn what goes into that. But well, I mean, depends on what type of job you're going to do. But once you get to the point where you are working professionally, you have to kind of take advantage of whatever tools you can. And because in the end, they're not. It's something that was something I came to realize when I was working when I was a student. You know, it was all about how amazingly skilled you were. Like that was I want to be the best possible. You know, like that was kind of the focus. But once you kind of get into the industry, it seems like amazing acts of skill are great, but they're more interested in you being productive and having, like, being able to be like, hey, can you give me this image in a day or in 2 days, and you have to be able to deliver on that. And when it comes to that, if there's other people that are using all these sort of like tools to help them deliver quickly and effectively, and you're being like, oh, I just want to be hardcore, I want to do it I don't want to rely on any of those things, and then you may find that people who use the tricks might actually get ahead a little bit more than you do. Although on the reverse side of that, I will say that if you rely too much on tricks, that could be detrimental as well in the long term. Because I just saw a video, I think it's about Comic Tropes, I think was the YouTube channel. It was my first time finding the channel, so I'm not really familiar, but he did something a video called Tracing the Career of who was it? Gary something or other? Yeah, I'll have to find that later, and if I do, I'll put it in the description. But it was like talking about this comic artist that he was using photo reference for all his work, and there's nothing wrong with that. Using photo reference is definitely something I recommend. I think that if you don't use reference, you're not really going to be able to grow, because you're going to be repeating the same kind of like drawing, not errors per se, but you'll have like basic drawing, you have a muscle memory of how you draw things. And so say you're used to drawing a nose in this way, and if you never look at reference, you'll probably just keep drawing it the exact same way forever. So you need the reference to kind of expand your repertoire, as it were. But the reverse side of that is that, so this artist on that channel, I think it was Comic Tropes, he was showing how he was using photo reference, and like even like references he didn't own, and like things that he would find on Google or whatnot, and he would use it all the time, so that you started seeing it in his comic characters that they would start looking really stiff. And you would notice also that there would, within the context of the comic, they're supposed to kind of be in one state of mind. They're supposed to be kind of shocked or surprised or something. But then you look at his drawings, and they all look like they're how do I describe this? So he was using, he was self-admitted to using a lot of like porn as reference apparently. So you could just imagine how a lot of the expressions on their faces was not the expressions that you would expect them to have, and it becomes quite apparent. And he goes through it in his video and he shows all these like these examples of his art. And I mean, I don't know that artist, so I don't want to knock him particularly, but that is another danger you have to keep in mind, that if you rely too much on photo reference to the point where you can't draw anything without it, and you need to actually, like, if you want to draw a person with their head tilted down, that you have to find a reference that has a person with their head tilted down, and then you're basically tracing that as is. That's going to really limit you as an artist, and you're not going to be able to produce interesting images. They're going to feel stiff and I don't know, copied, I guess. So it's an interesting balance to strike there. Alright, I think I'm liking the general shapes here, more or less. So let's go to my next layer and shrink my brush a little bit and try to put a little bit more detail into this. Another big thing too is, like, if you are using references, I would say to use more than one. Like right now this is just kind of like a fan art, so I'm just looking at this one image, but if I was actually designing a character, I would probably have this whole page full of different designs and different like references, like maybe get a whole bunch of different armors and like different like models, poses and things, and work from there. And you want to kind of mix and match and really make it your own. So that was everything with I think his name was Greg Land. I'm pretty sure that was his name. Actually, let me see if I can find this real quick while I'm talking about it, so that I don't have to worry about it later. But let's see. Pretty sure it was Greg Land Comic Tropes. Let's see if that comes up. And switch the OBS to show you the right page. Let me see, we want YouTube. There we go. Okay. So yeah, this is the first video here. It says tracing the success of Greg Land. So if you get a chance to check this out on your own time, it was really quite interesting. But he was just showing these examples of how he was taking these images, and it's almost exact. Like you see here, was basically taking the exact same image and just reproducing it. This is actually not the, I think it's the Sojourn one. It was the one that was most obvious. Let's see here, where was it? Should be right. So there's one image that's like really obvious, if I can find it. Yeah, I don't know. Doesn't seem to be. This is another interesting one with like Marvel, where there was a famous singer. I think it was a Christian singer actually, that they used her as a reference to draw this background, but she didn't give permission for that, and it became sort of like a it was settled out of court, but it was an issue because the Christian artist didn't want to be associated with the comic, but like this was so directly she was so directly referenced in the art that a person looking at the comic could recognize her. So where is it? Can't find it. I feel like it was like right before that part. Yeah, well, watch the video on your own. I think that's probably the best thing to do. But it was just very obvious because you can see that there's like one particular image that's being referenced for 90% of what the art actually ends up being, and that's a pretty big no-no. I think that if you are using reference, you want probably 90% of your image to be different than what you're referencing. You know, you don't want it to be the other way around. So when it looks like 90% of the core of your image is based off of another image, then that's going to cause issues. And also, and it just sort of like there was the legal talk about the issues that was causing. but also just in terms of you as an artist not being able to grow because you're going to be too reliant on getting the exact image that you want, rather than being able to take images and then transform them into what you want. And probably get more into that in future streams, where, so like right now I'm kind of doing this like sort of like Diablo fan art, but in the future I kind of want to start a series where I design particularly fantasy characters or fantasy creatures, and in that I'll probably go through more the workflow of what you would do as a designer. Alright, there we go. Oh, let me get my YouTube page up again, just in case anyone had any comments. Alright, cool. So let's see. So I think a lot of people have heard the idea of light to dark when you're drawing, to start light and go darker. I don't know if that's necessarily as important with digital, but I mean with analog or non-digital, obviously you don't want to put very dark marks down right away before you kind of know what you're doing. But also not just light to, I think in addition to light to dark, I would say the other thing you want to keep in mind is try to go from messy, or I guess messy to refined, and also I'd say large brush to small brush. So you don't want to start right away with a really large brush. You want to kind of work your way toward make a smaller brush and start with very large strokes. Okay, there we go. Another thing is to think about where you want your details. So like for example, the face is probably an area that a viewer is going to naturally have their eye drawn to. So the face, you probably want more details, maybe spend a little bit more time on the face than you would with the other parts. Yeah, that's, I don't know. For some reason her face looks a little younger than what I was going for, but I think it will work. Let's just keep it like that for now, and we can fix it up later. So I finally got the Famicom Mini, the Classic Mini Classic, how does he say it? And the Super Famicom Classic Mini. And it paid off. Like, good things come to people who wait, because I have a little bit of a story. So like, I was wanting to get it when it came out in Japan a while back, but I'm not really one of those people that like is like rushing to get in line and to be there like the first person to buy it. Like for me, it's just like, well, if it's in stock, I'll buy it, you know, whatever, you know. I don't really like falling into hype trains, I guess. And so obviously that was the thing with the Nintendo products in general. They seem to only give enough to make sure that there is like this kind of hype thing where everyone wants a copy, but there's just not enough copies available. And so it wasn't available. And the thing that really threw me off is I went to an electronics store. I think it was called Nojima was the store here, and I went there, and they said it had it in stock. So I was thinking like, there's no way they have it in stock. But my girlfriend at that time, who is now my wife, like asked them, and they were like, oh yeah, we have it in stock. And like she was really excited. She wanted to buy one for me for my birthday or whatnot. And I don't know if it was my birthday or Christmas, I forget. But she wanted to buy me a copy. And like they said they had it in stock, and we were like so excited. And then they sat us down, and they went to get it and everything. And then they came out and they said, okay, but so we can sell you this for I think it was like 40 bucks or so was the asking price. They're like, okay, we can sell you this, but we also need to sell you an insurance plan. And I was like, well, what's the insurance plan? They're like, yeah, it's another I think it was like 50 bucks or maybe like 40, I don't remember exactly, but like altogether it was going to be like $80 to $90 or something, because they wanted to get the insurance plan. They're like, well, because you know, if it breaks down, like it will have this insurance plan so that we can replace it or whatever. I'm like, I don't really think it's going to break down, and even if it did break down, like this is 40 bucks, right? So I could just buy another one if I'm going to pay 40 bucks for an insurance plan. That doesn't make any sense. Like I get a $40 insurance plan for like a a $500 washing machine or something, but a $40 insurance for a $40 gaming like device, that doesn't make any sense. And essentially what it was is they were just trying to let me increase the opacity of this a little bit. They were just trying to make extra money off of it because of how popular it was. They were just like raising the price, and that really threw me off because I know that outside of Japan probably that seems pretty obvious that that's something like a store or whatnot would do, but Japanese stores usually aren't at all like that. There's no like haggling for prices or anything. It's usually just like, well, that's what the price is, so that's what it is. Like it's very straightforward. So that it kind of shocked me that they would actually be kind of raising the price like that, and also being kind of like shady about it, and not, instead of just saying like, oh, we're charging extra because it's popular, they are like, oh yeah, you need an insurance plan or something. And then they said, oh, and you also need this like adapter because there's no adapter included, and you can't play without the adapter. And now that I actually have a physical copy, I finally see that the adapter that they were talking about is basically just a what do you call it? Like a USB port. It's what you would like plug in your phone in to your phone to charge your phone with. And it's like I have tons of those. I didn't need to buy any of that. So luckily I waited. And if you live in Japan, you may know of a store called Book Off. And Book Off, they sell used books mostly, but also like video games, movies, and whatnot. And so I went to my local Book Off, and they had both the Famicom and the Super Famicom Mini both there, available for basically the same price that it was originally. Which, I mean, I guess technically used it should be a little bit cheaper, but if you know Japanese Book Off, their used stuff is usually still in really good condition. So I picked both of those up and brought it home and played a little bit yesterday. It's pretty cool. I'm a little disappointed with the Famicom. The Super Famicom, it's pretty much everything I wanted. I'm really good, really happy with it. The thing with the Famicom is if you look at the I don't know if it's like America only or like just the non-Japanese releases for the NES, the Nintendo, the NES Mini Classic. It actually has controllers that are the right size. You know, it's actually an actual controller that you can hold in your hand and you plug it in. The Super Famicom doesn't. The Super Famicom has not the Super, the regular Famicom. The regular Famicom has controllers that are mini. So they're mini controllers. They're basically the size of like the Nintendo Switch controllers, maybe even a little smaller. And then they have the cord coming out from the sides. So like one of the controllers has the cord coming out from the right side, the other one has it from the left side, and it just feels weird in your hand because first off you're holding a really small controller, and secondly like there's a cord sticking out like through, and you have to like weave it through your fingers or something because it's not coming out where your hand isn't. It's coming out where your hand is, you know. So it's kind of weird. But maybe I'll get used to it. And then I was looking online to see if there's a way to use like wireless or to use something else. And everything's the thing is like the NES Classic Mini. It's you plug in the controllers, but the Famicom Mini, the controllers are already like installed. Like it's what's the word? It's not plugged in. Like the wires is literally coming out of the machine, and that wire leads into your controller. So there's no plug. So what you have to do, if you like, I looked online, the people that were actually putting other controllers in or something, is you actually have to open it up and like rewire it essentially. It's like, damn, I don't want to go through all that just to change my wire or change my controller. So, I don't know, I'll try to get used to it, I guess, but I would like to play with a controller that's actually like a hand-sized controller, like sort of like what you would actually have if you were playing a Nintendo. I don't know. See if we can figure something out. Yeah, she's got like a really young face here, I don't know, compared to the one on the left. It's probably all the life in Japan where, you know, generally all the characters in anime and stuff are generally always very young. Maybe that's kind of rubbing off on me, I don't know. Yeah, so I've noticed now that I'm getting a little too neat here, because this is a rough. I really need to be a little bit less what's the word? I need to be a little bit less deliberate with these strokes, because as a rough, we want this to be done in a short amount of time. And the problem with the subject matter that we chose is that Diablo characters have very detailed armor. Like there's just straps and like designs on each armor. And if I were to actually spend, it'd be very easy for me to end up spending way too much time on one particular part of the armor. I haven't played Diablo for a couple of days now. I want to get back into it. Like I beat what's the guy's name? Malthael, the expanded content. I did that on expert with hardcore mode, and then I was like, okay, now I want to go back and try Torment, because I've never actually played the game on Torment before. So I was like, okay, let's take this character and go back to Torment, because the first time that I beat the game on hardcore mode, like after I beat it, it's like, oh, I'm just glad that I survived. So I was like, I don't even want to try anything else. But this time it was like I survived, and it wasn't actually that hard either, because I think maybe I got used to Path of Exile and other more difficult games. So I was like, okay, well, yeah, this pushes a little bit further. Let's go to Torment with my hardcore characters. And thing is, I was thinking, oh, I should probably put that on Twitch or something. But I've been having a lot of issues with Twitch lately, so I'd like to get some Twitch stuff going on in the future. But I don't know if it's my internet or what. But like, it's just sometimes it'll be extremely laggy. And it's like embarrassingly laggy. It's embarrassingly laggy, because like I have people actually watching the stream and they're like, oh, I can't see anything, it's lagging. And then I'm like, okay, well, I guess I have to end the stream. And it's kind of embarrassing, because it makes me look kind of like that I don't know how, I know, it just, it doesn't seem, it's not very professional, I don't think. I'd like it to just be able to work and not have to like end a stream in the middle of playing. But I don't know how to fix it, honestly, at the moment. So I'll try some stuff out and see in the future, maybe. The other thing I want to get better at is understanding how to be less linear with my work and to work more with shapes. I used to do it a lot before I came to Japan, but Japan is they're really focused on line work, and so it seems like now I always kind of like rely on making these outlines or this linear work first, where I notice a lot of my artist friends who aren't from Japan, they will be more focused on blocking in like the shapes rather than worrying about the lines. So that's something I probably should work on in the future. Man, there's so many details in this armor. Can I actually move the reference a little closer? There we go. Okay, there we go. I don't know, maybe I will try that with the next sketch. Maybe I'll try not using lines and see how that goes. Oh, I like this sword. This is actually one of my favorite sword, I don't know, gimmicks or designs. I like when the handle curves in this direction, and then the sword curves in the other direction. Just because having it curve this way, it actually gives it extra torque when you're swinging it. I don't know how many of you actually like swung real swords or whatnot, but there is sort of like a torque that you get when you have a handle like this. this, and this just be kind of messy with the lower half. I don't think that's going to be an area that the viewer is going to spend too much attention on, so I want to get to actual shading and color soon. How much time has that been? I gotta get a lot faster at this. Ideally, I'd like to get one of these done in like, now 20 minutes. At work, I often just kind of get into this this zone where I'm just listening to podcasts, or like maybe even like Japanese dramas. And then you can just kind of get into the zone where you're just drawing for hours and hours. And that helps a lot, because I notice that I don't get tired. So if I were to just be drawing in complete silence, in about maybe 2-3 hours, I'll kind of get tired and I need a break. Whereas if I'm like enraptured in like a drama or like some type of like podcast or something, I can basically draw the whole day and make a lot of progress that way. But then on the other side, maybe I kind of am slowing down a little bit because I'm so comfortable. So maybe I need to get used to drawing under some time pressure as well. I don't know. Alright, I think in general that is the basic shapes we're looking for. So I'm gonna, do I still want the bottom layer? Yeah, I don't think we need that anymore, so I'm gonna delete the bottom layer. And actually no, let's keep it a little bit longer just so I can put some shading down. So let's try to actually shade this a little bit. So first off, I'll take this color over here and let's just fill it in. So to fill it in, I'm going to select everything outside of the image, or outside of the line, and then Control-Shift-I to reverse that, and then I could fill in the selection like so. Like a lot of times I see people on like YouTube where they'll actually like draw the silhouette, and sometimes I wonder, like, do they not know that you can just like use a selection tool and very quickly like get your outline? But I don't know, maybe they do know, and they have a specific reason why they draw it that way. All right, so I guess I'm using this color for her. I'm wondering why I'm using a skin color here. I guess because the bottom is going to be her skin tone. I guess that would work. Okay. And now let's try to actually shade this in a bit. So I think one of these layers is a multiply layer. Yep, there we go. So now we have a multiply layer. So let's just do multiplication to kind of get the general shades. We're going to have one layer for multiply, which is going to give us our darks, and then we'll have another layer for screen, which will give us the highlights. And I'm keeping the bottom layer for right now, just so I kind of have an idea of what I was thinking, but I'm going to delete that afterwards. Okay, I think I can get rid of that bottom layer now. Okay. So I don't think I mentioned it, but what I'm doing right now is first I used a standard brush to just well, not brush, but like a pencil to put down the areas that I want shading to be, and now I'm using a watercolor brush to actually like smooth out those areas, give it more of like a gradation. Okay, now that we have the general gradation, I go through with, I guess you call it an eraser. It's just a negative color, and add the reflected lights. So things that reflect, and you call it, some people also call it rim light, and just in general clean up the shadows. Okay. Alright, and I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Another thing I could do is I could go back to the pencil and just fill in darks that I want to keep. I'm probably going to change the color afterwards. I'm just kind of keeping this sort of clay color right now, just for the heck of it. There already are some remarkable differences from my interpretation of the actual reference character, but I'm not too worried about that. Okay, that's good enough for a rough. So then we're going to go to the screen layer, and now we'll put the highlights. And usually once you put the highlights in, that's when it really starts to pop. And so once again, I'm just kind of putting the general area where I want highlights to be. I'm not defining it right now. I'm just kind of putting the areas that I want it to be, and then later on I'll go with a different brush. Okay, now let's go back and just highlight, define that a little bit, add gradations and whatnot. Okay, that's more or less okay for a rough, I think. And just go over one more time with the areas that I want to keep a little bit more crisp. So they have like some folds in her cloth here. Yeah, it's more or less okay. Alright, so now that's probably good enough for the general shading. Let's try to get to some color now. See, it's taking me 40 minutes already. That's not good. I really want to get to the point where I can finish these in a half hour. But, I don't know, I gotta get more practice, I guess. It also kind of is the subject matter, because I think there's a lot more detail on this than I would regularly have in a design. Alright, so we want this kind of blue. But actually no, it looks like since I have the shading done, the color doesn't look like it's going to take quite as long. Alright. Almost there. A little too yellow. Go for maybe here. Yeah, looks about right. Yeah, I'm changing some of the design, but that's just personal preference. Okay. And here. Now down here is really not this yellow, but for the rough I think that's fine. We'll just use the same yellow for the kind of little details in the armor down here. And you can be kind of chicken scratchy with your roughs because you just want to imply what's going on there. Okay, I want to change the color of her skin tone. Okay, that more or less works. Looking at it now, I feel like her head is probably a little too wide, and maybe that's part of what's making it look younger, or read younger. So let's take this whole thing. Maybe I could slim this up a little bit, or not really slim, but pull it in. Now, I think I want to keep the eyes the same size they were though. So let's take this part of her face, move that in a little bit. Should probably just redraw it. Yeah. Which layer is that? This layer? Okay. Give her a little bit harder of an expression. And now you can probably notice right now that the this is getting very pixelated, and that's because I'm drawing this small. And I'm doing that on purpose because since this is a rough, I know that if I was doing this for real, I could or if I was doing this at full resolution, I get really lost in the details of this person's face. And since it is a rough, I want to have it finished, or just have like a general, like, think of it as basically as like a thumbnail. I want to just have this kind of general thumbnail done so that I could show and see if this is the right direction to be going in. And I want to get that done quickly. And just knowing myself, I know that the more resolution I have, the longer it takes me to finish, because I start getting like, I get kind of clogged down by the details. Alright, so I feel like a little color in the mouth. I don't know. Not really liking that. But I think a lot of that is because of the resolution. But as like, yeah, so as a thumbnail, I think that works more or less. I feel like, I don't know, maybe her eyes should be a little bit thinner? I don't know. Maybe I just need more shading. I'm not sure. What if I did shade a little bit more? Where's my shading layer? There we go. Yeah, that actually might help a bit. Okay, I think more or less that's okay. So now we have these two roughs. Let's put those next to each other. Where's my thing? Okay. Okay, there we go. And actually, looking at it now, I wonder, did I change this here? Oh, yeah, it looks like I wasn't actually drawing with black in that layer, so that's why it's kind of subdued. Does it look better if I make it black? No, it doesn't. Let's keep it how it was. Alright, cool. So, there you go. We have two roughs. A little slightly different approach for each one. The one on the left side, I focused more on getting the colors down first before I started shading. The one on the right side, I did the shading first. I kind of feel like the shading first actually is a better approach. I don't know, I may fool around with different things in the future, but it felt like I had defined the form more at that point, and it was easier to do the colors rather than the opposite way. But I don't know. Go ahead and take a look at these. Let me know if you want me to go into more detail with any of these. So this is a rough. This is just to give you an idea of how this works. This is just a rough. This is just like to be like, okay, these are just some ideas I had, which like thumbnail sketches. What do you think? And then if one of these was approved, I'm like, okay, once you go down this direction, then you would take the one that's approved, and you would increase the size up to like the full size, and then you would do all the actual detail that you would expect. So I don't know. That took me a little bit too long. It was under an hour, so I guess that's good. But I really want to get to the point where I can finish these in like 20-30 minutes. So that's what I'm really shooting for, is trying to figure out how to get a rough done in 20-30 minutes. And I might try some different subject matter later, because I think that the subject matter of this is there's just all these little details that I get kind of clogged down in. But anyways, yes, let me know if you want me to do the alien head. The alien head monk. So that's the one on the left. We'll call that number 1. So number 1 or number 2. Or should we go do the demon witch, or not demon witch, demon hunter. Yep. So maybe one of like that one. So actually that looks like it'd be fun to draw too, but I don't know. Let me know 1, 2, or 3. Now obviously 3 will just be another rough, but 1 or 2, if you select 1 or 2, I'll go through those and do an actual like move on toward a more finished piece with actual detailed line work and whatnot. So I think that's all for this week. Thank you for watching, and until next time, live boldly and be creative. Yoroshiku.